guy from Friends List is here. I'm gonna go meet up with him and get him to buy us all drinks.
Look how bad are her burns?
Most likely hydrofluoric acid.
This girl posted everything. I'm thinking somebody hijacked her profile.
I'm running out of excuses to keep you on active duty.
Do you know how easy it is to stalk people on Friends List these days?
He's probably some bald 40-year-old.
I think you're gonna like this.
What do you want from me?
But how could somebody know where anybody's going to be before they check in?
Depending upon your privacy settings, even a perfect stranger can see what you're doing.
You could case her whole house just by looking at these pictures.
I think I got a suspect right here.
You're relieved of duty.
Isn't social media wonderful?
What do you want from me?
I want to be your friend.
Hey everybody, it's vlog time from a brand new location. I'm currently house/pet sitting for my parents. And so I watched a shitty, semi-new horror movie just now that I only heard about today. The movie's called Friend Request. You may not have heard of this. Apparently this movie came out about 3 years ago. I was trying to find out as much information about this movie as I possibly could, and there's not a lot out there. There don't really even seem to be any reviews. All you can really get is, a quick little movie synopsis and, and who's in it and who made it. Pretty much, this is a small budget, obviously independently made horror movie. There's another movie coming out this year that has that same name, only it's a much, much different plot. And this one stars Anthony Michael Hall, and just in case if you don't remember or even know who that name is, he was a pretty prominent actor in the 80s. He was in a lot of John Hughes movies. He was the nerd in The Breakfast Club, and he was the co-star of Weird Science. He was in 16 Candles. He's been in a lot of stuff. He was in Edward Scissorhands, too, as the antagonist. And he's been in a lot of stuff, and now here he is in a shitty horror movie that he also executively produced. How much did you believe in this project? Now, I will say this. The acting is not bad. At least his acting is okay, but a lot of the characters are pretty inconsistent. Overall, this is a pretty shitty, pretty dumb, and pretty predictable horror movie. So, the plot is there's a masked, not killer, because they don't kill anybody, actually. Clock. The plot is that this person poses as somebody on Friends List, not Facebook, Friends List, though it does have the same exact, blue and white font as Facebook does. In fact, it even has the same sort of comment section. They just couldn't call it Facebook. And they go around pretending to be somebody else, and they lure, these people who are well known as being very flirtatious and constantly posing, vanity pictures of themselves. People who use and abuse other people sexually, or hell, one of them was a sexual offender who had several charges to him and was a much, much older man. Only they don't kill them. The very first victim of the movie is this gorgeous girl who's out clubbing, and she goes out to meet him by his car, and he picks her up, takes her back, and tortures her, and scorches like half of her face in acid. Of course, you don't actually see the actual damage until near the end of the movie. And two other guys, I guess, were playboys. Well, one was a playboy who was going around and just fucking everybody and everything that he could and constantly posting about it. The other guy was a sex offender who was constantly hitting on underage girls online. And for these guys, well, one of them cut off the guy's dick, and the other one shot off the guy's dick after he made him watch gay porn and then played a little game of Russian roulette with his dick. basically asking him a bunch of questions about, are you going to continue to try and seek out underage girls, and you know. And I mean, so what I meant earlier about the movie being kind of inconsistent with some of its characters, in particular, is Anthony Michael Hall's character, who plays Burke, a detective who's on the edge, and he drinks, and a lot of his attitude, you know, you'd think that because from his character, because he's very standoffish, he's very arrogant, and he's an all-around asshole, and he immediately hates his first new partner that he gets. I'm sorry, I forget, you know, what her character's name, because a lot of the characters here are pretty forgettable. You know, and she's a semi-rookie-ish, you know, but she's good, and, you know, she's nice and semi-quirky. Her quirk is that she's OCD. And you see this, like, twice. Like, every time she comes home, she lays out her stuff, she lays out her badge, her phone, and her gun on her counter, goes upstairs, changes into her sweats, comes back downstairs, notices that they're all kind of out of order, and then pushes them back in order, which just kind of makes me go, yeah, that's a little weird. And she kind of has the same routine every single night. Yeah, that's a little odd. But anyway, within like the first 20 minutes, all we know of Anthony Michael Hall's character, Burke, is that he's a complete asshole. Like, he's parked along the side. Actually, he's parked up on the sidewalk, drunk, in his car, asleep. And then, you know, he goes into work, and he has this huge, you know, 5 o'clock shadow that just proceeds to remain as a 5 o'clock shadow. And that he drinks heavily, and you're supposed to be led to believe that he's a really good detective, or that at one time he was a really good detective. Right now he's a burnout. And then we follow him home that night, you know, and this is after they go to investigate the very first victim, who is, you know, hung up at her house, you know, like a trophy sort of thing, only she's still alive. And he goes and he looks around, and he smells at her blood, and obviously notices that there was a chemical that was involved, because you could smell it on the blood. They don't tell you that, but that becomes pretty obvious. But then he goes home that night, you know, and we get to see their routines, where he just drinks himself to death. And the whole time there are these very somber shots, you know, and everything is shot in low light. And he's there, and he's got, you know, this very sad, depressed look on his face. And at one point he's playing with his gun, and, you know, it almost looks like he's gonna, you know, put it to his head or anything like that, and then instead just does another shot of whiskey. And I was thinking, okay, I'm guessing he lost his wife. Maybe he lost his kid. No, his wife is still alive. And he has a loving daughter who he cares very deeply about, deeply respects and loves. Which makes no fucking sense. Now, yeah, he's kind of pissed off his wife. He doesn't hate her, because she cheated on him with somebody on friends list. But, you know, he treats his partner, who is a woman, completely like shit, only and partially because she's a woman. And yes, I say that because he brings it up all the goddamn time. Like, when he first meets her, he's like, nice ass, and then just walks out of the room. Really, asshole? And it just kind of goes on from there, where he just does not respect her, treats her like shit, till finally she kind of snaps and puts him in an arm bar and shoves him up against the wall, and I'm just going, thank you. Because up until now, he's been nothing but an unreasonable asshole, and we've seen no sign of the fact that he's a good detective. At all. And he has no reason to be a burnout or an asshole. I mean, he still has his family. I mean, his wife is no longer in the picture. She, you know, I guess married the guy who she cheated on him with. But he still has his daughter, who I guess, you know, goes, you know, from mom to dad, mom to dad, mom to dad, because they live in the same city, because the wife later becomes a victim, which is what led me to believe, spoiler, which is something that led me to immediately believe the psycho's going to be the partner. Because how much of a coincidence is it that at the same time that after she's dropping off the daughter from their girls' night out date, that when she goes back home to her mother, that her mother's on friends list hitting on this new guy and they're going to meet up? How much of a coincidence is that? And also that at the same time that we see that when the psycho is caught by a police officer, that we see that this person obviously knows how to handle themselves, knows quite a bit about self-defense, unarms, and kind of beats the shit out of this cop, but is smart enough to not kill them. And the wife lives. She's, you know, the psycho basically just tried to chloroform her, basically. And how it all wraps up is that they find this other guy who is also a bit of a rapist, though the one rape charge that he had was dismissed because there wasn't enough evidence. Because their hacker on the force discovers that he was using the same IP address as the original one, or however that works. I'm not a tech guy, so don't ask me. Oh yeah, one other thing I forgot to mention, the police chief, and I wondered if this was the same guy at first, but I'm sure it is played by the bad guy from Karate Kid. The, like, head of the bad guy dojo, the Cobra dojo, I believe was what it was. You know, the guy with the famous line, "Sweep the leg." Do you have a problem with that? No mercy. Yeah, it's that guy. He's in a shitty horror movie too, along with Anthony Michael Hall. And so, you know, they get to the guy right as he's actually assaulting another woman who he invited back to his place. And they get him, and they also find, because the psycho called the detective, and they trace the number back to a phone that just happens to be in this guy's possession, along with everything else, along with the mask and all the various instruments and tools and such that the psycho used to torture and not actually kill, but did everything else. And our movie culminates with, you know, because they're getting along so well, Burke invites his partner over to their house for dinner, where he's going to cook, and he's talking to the hacker guy about the fact that the one thing that this guy had on his record, because the guy was clean, was that he had a rape charge, but it was dismissed, like several years ago. But they can't find the girl, because she's not on friends list, so we can't find her. Obviously because she changed her name. Well, we find out that, you know, hacker finds a picture of her and sends it to Burke, like while he's making dinner, and figures out that, oh, it's her, because I'm a brilliant detective now, even though we've never seen any fucking sign of that until now. Sorry, got the chest roll burps. And so he mentions that to her, she semi-snaps, and he doesn't really react, like turns his back to her and goes back over to the frying pan where he's cooking, and just kind of, you know, keeps on digging a little bit about how, like, yeah, so I guess it must have felt good to you, you're gonna get back at your old friend, huh? You know, the guy from college, James, or whoever it was. And she slowly grabs a bottle of wine, walks toward him, still with his back turned to her, and obviously her voice and her tone has changed, and she bashes him over the head and knocks him out. And he wakes up and he's handcuffed, and she explains that, you know, now she's gone into full, you know, psycho mode. And she explains that the guy seemed nice, though they had never met before. They were on friends list, Facebook. and that, and her friends and family had said to her, like, you don't know who this person is, and and she defended him, and all this, and then they went out to dinner, they first meet, and then she was stupid enough to go back to his place, and he tied her up, and he raped her, and he took various pictures of her, and humiliating pictures, obviously posted it all over Friends List, which is a stupid fucking thing to do to begin with, because, well, since he actually did rape you, and there was the photographic evidence, if he had posted it all over the internet, that's pretty goddamn good evidence right there, that actually happened. So that's not exactly a case that you could dismiss, no matter how much fucking money you have. And, and that's the reason why she went crazy. It took her several years, apparently, to do this dastardly deed. Really what this movie is trying to be, it's trying to be like Seven, basically, where the killer takes, well, it's a much better, more thought out movie with better characters and better writing, too, where you get a killer who sees himself as prophesizing a message about morality and about, obviously Bible teachings and such things like that, and using their killings, as a method for teaching and for trying to spread a new message. This, is just, it's semi-revenge, but it's so weak, because even at the end of it, she doesn't die. The daughter comes home and overhears everything, grabs her dad's gun that he hides underneath the pillow, though he seemed to have everything under control because he was slowly undoing his handcuffs. But before he can do anything, the daughter, she walks into the kitchen, aims the gun, but, the partner turns really fast and shoots the daughter in the shoulder, but he gets undone and tackles her. She goes down. Kind of anticlimactic, with one of the worst line endings where he's talking to his daughter, just making sure that she's okay. And she says, well, one thing's definitely for sure. I'm definitely going to unfriend her. It even tries to end kind of in the same way that Seven does, where she gets handcuffed and she gets put in the back of the car, and the chief is like, I don't blame her, for everything that she did, and da-da-da. And it's sad too, because you two were just starting to bond, and she was really taking a liking to you, and every 15 minutes with that shit. And she's put in an insane asylum, and the guy there's an orderly who's carting her through and tells her that, oh, we got all the latest movies. In fact, there's a new one coming out called Friend Request. It's all about, people, it's like all about a psycho serial killer who stalks people, via Facebook, or Friends List, really, as they put it, because they couldn't use Facebook. Yeah, this is clearly, obviously modeled after the whole Craigslist killer shit and everything like that, which I understand, can be a real and a pretty scary thing. But if you're that fucking stupid, but hey, who knows? But overall, man, this movie was crap, and I hadn't even heard of this. A matter of fact, nobody has apparently heard of this, because when I looked this movie up, the only other information that will come up is about a 2006 movie called Friend Request, but it's a completely different plot line where, yeah, it's about Facebook, but, it's a spirit ghost revenge movie. Not Unfriended, not that other dumb movie. This is another different, maybe dumb horror movie. But unless if you type in, Anthony Michael Hall's name, that's the only way in which you're going to find this movie. Hell, nobody's even done a review of this on YouTube. Unless if someone else has, and you just really got to search for it. But overall, yeah, this is a pretty bad horror movie. I mean, if you've seen a lot of horror movies, you can find this to be pretty predictable. The acting is not bad, the direction's not terrible, but a lot of the detective work is especially bad. The way that the characters are handled, I mean Anthony Michael Hall's character is utterly despicable. I mean, the fact that he just immediately dismisses and treats his partner like shit, and it's kind of a despicable human being, and the whole time you think that, you know, he better have a damn good reason. No, he doesn't. He's just an asshole who just takes a long time, I guess, to get to know. You know, there are far hell, Riggs from Lethal fucking Weapon. Lethal Weapon 1, you know, for a great example, was overall a good character. Yeah, he was messed up in the head. He lost his wife. You know, I mean, he lost everything that he cared about. And he was a man on the edge. He was a man who wanted to die and wanted to kill himself. There's a fucking scene in the movie where he puts a loaded gun into his own mouth and is seconds away from pulling the trigger. And that's a far better and far more interesting character. Hell, I bet there are several other, you know, different, you know, cop characters from any other movie or television series who could have that same kind of character where, you know, they're a cop on the edge, you know, and they're an alcoholic and they drown out all their problems with alcohol, but they're not an asshole. Yeah, they're a bit rough to get around, but they're not just an asshole just for no good goddamn reason. Well, alright, everybody, that has been my vlog review style of Friend Request. It's pretty crappy. If I had to give it a rating, I don't know, 3 out of 10. I rented this off the PlayStation Network for like $4. It's maybe worth a rent, it's not worth a buy. I think this movie, even on the PlayStation Network, had a rating of like 4 stars. I don't know who rates this shit, but they need their rating card taken away. This movie was pretty crappy. It wasn't terrible. I was able to sit through the whole thing without wanting desperately to fast forward, so yeah. Well, there you go. Not absolutely terrible, but still a piece of shit. Well, hope that you've enjoyed. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you did enjoy this. Check me out on Twitter at JMR2709. I'll see you guys next time.